Alright, everyone. What is up? It's your boy K Natsuki here, back at it again with another new spanking hot what if video for you today. Now, for those who have not seen my post last night, I'm making another new spanking hot what if. And this one is something which I'm pretty sure no one has ever done before, as a lot of people have done Bill Cipher what ifs before, yes, but this is completely different. But first, before I even get into the name of this what if, I just have to, go into the backstory, okay? As we go many years ago, into the year 835. As around this time, Gravity Falls would basically have been undersea, and would basically have been claimed by a royal family, or the last living member of a dying royal family. His name would have been Mason Pines. Now, Mason would have claimed Gravity Falls as a getaway from his stressful life as a, how can I explain this, very busy and always rushed prince. As, he had no sister, as his sister had fallen critically ill to a painful disease that was about 10 times worse than lung cancer. As there was no chance of survival, and so his sister would have died, leaving him the sole inheritor of everything that their family had owned, as their parents would have died when they were little, when he and his sister were little. As he would have purchased a small town just off the coast of pretty much Canada. As it wasn't exactly a town back then, more such just a territory, a forest of sorts. As he would have decided to build a castle there, made out of bricks. As this castle would have been called Pines Manor. As Mason would begin to settle in to the entire place, as one day, however, about a week after he had just built his castle and everything was perfect, he began noticing strange things. Weird things, indeed. He began noticing that there was creatures of many different calibers, and there was always something new and strange to explore in Gravity Falls, as he would have named it Gravity Falls, the place where nothing makes sense. As he would basically be exploring one day, as he would see a woman, or a girl. As this girl would appear to be a Victorian woman with yellow hair, and in a black and yellow dress of sorts, with a umbrella. As he would say, hello, hello, miss, are you okay? Hey, do you live around here? As the woman would look over to Mason, and, well, she would just say, yeah, who are you? Don't you know that don't you know that this place has things wrong with it? As he'd then say, of course. After all, a week ago I purchased it. And a week ago I moved here. The name's Prince Mason Pines. Or the Earl Mason Pines. As she would then say, the name's Belle. The name's Belle. Belle Cipher. I have a cabin a couple miles back. I have a cabin about 3 miles to the east. She would point over to the east. As Dipper would then say, you okay? And she would then say, yes, why not? Why would I not be? As he would then say, nothing. It just seems, how can I explain, strange. After all, I thought I was the only one here. As she would then say, well, I thought I was the only one here, aside from all the monsters and other creatures. As Mason would then say, so, would you like to, I don't know, go to my castle and chat or something? As Belle would then say, sure. As the two would leave. As the two would walk over to Dipper's, to the Pines Manor. As she would say, so your family crest is a pine tree, I'm guessing? As he'd then say, I guess. As she'd then say, well, I'm gonna call you Pine Tree. Then, is that okay? As he'd then say, no, I should then say, oh, come on, Pine Tree. As he would blush just a bit and would say, fine, you may call me Pine Tree. I should then say, yay. As we skip a couple hours later, as the two would have gotten to know each other, Belle would explain how she thought she was the only one in in this weird place, as Mason would then tell her how he had named it Gravity Falls, as basically nothing makes sense here. Therefore, probably not even gravity would work here in some places. As she would then say, yeah, you're right about that. Nice name, Gravity Falls. As he'd then say, well, your name isn't bad either. It's Belle, right? As Belle would then blush just a tiny bit, as she would then say, yes. Belle Cipher. My full name is Belle Cipher. As he'd then say, well, nice knowing. Well, it's been nice seeing you. Would you like me to bring you to your cabin? As she would then, as a look of fear or stress would appear on Belle's face, and she would say, oh, no. I can walk myself. Don't worry. As I then say, "Are you sure?" As she would say, "Yes, I'm 1,000% sure." As he'd then say, "Okay." As she would walk out of the manor and would begin walking in the woods. As once she got far enough from Dipper's gaze, I'm from Mason's gaze or his manner, she would begin waving her hands around as she would create a portal. As she would arrive in a sort of black pyramid with all sorts of different colors in the cracks of it. As this would be a giant floating black pyramid with rainbow cracks. As she would have called it, her pyramid. As she would walk, basically she would walk through the portal into the pyramid, as she would then say, "Well, today was indeed a interesting day." Very interesting indeed. I met a guy, and he's cute and nice. As she would then just do a little chuckle. Hold on. As she would then basically transform into this sort of form, as she would then say, "Well then, back to, watching the Nightmare Realm like usual," as she would then watch over all of the untold chaos of the Nightmare Realm's infinite void-like reality. Hold on. As Belle would be a bit saddened, as she would want her people to be, and she'd want her minions and everything, and the entire Nightmare Realm to be out, as she would want to rule over all, but would understand that this would make that even if she had all these monsters and demons ruling over everything, she'd still be pretty lonely. Until the next day when she would meet with, Mason again. As she and Mason would over time become very, very, very good friends. As we skip about 2 months later, as Dipper and as Mason and her are basically best friends. He calls her Belle. He just calls her Belle, and she calls him Pine Tree. As Mason and her have been friends for, and as we do another time skip of 10 months. They've been friends for an entire year, and Belle wants to confess two things to Mason because he does not want to hide anything from her newest best friend. As she then says, as she basically calls him for a lunch meeting. As she meets him at his manor like normal. As she then, as you know, right in the middle of lunch, things are pretty normal until she then says, "Listen, there's two things I want to confess to you about." As Mason then says, "Yes, Belle?" As she then says, "How can I explain this?" The first thing is a bit, I guess you could say weird or strange. Basically, I guess you could say I'm a demon. As Mason would then say, "Really?" As she would then say, "Yep." As she would then turn into this form and would say, "Hey, I'm a demon of dreams. I can make deals, basically manipulate reality, basically a whole bunch of overpowered stuff. I'm basically a whole bunch of a whole bunch of godly random bullshit." As he would then say, so, what was the second thing?" As she would then turn back into her humanoid form and would then say, "Mason Pines, I know it's only been 1 year, but how can I explain this? I love you." As she would rush over to him and hug him. As Mason would then say, "I love you too, but you're a demon, and it isn't that I'm criticizing you for being a demon. It's just that what happens when I die, when I poof away into nothing, and when I die of old age or any type of reason. You would be angered and saddened, wouldn't you?" As she would then say, "Yeah, I guess you're right." As she would then, as there would be silence for 10 solid minutes, as the two would just be sitting, eating lunch, silently. As all of Gravity Falls was silent for those solid 10 minutes, until Belle got an idea. As she would then grin, and as she would then have a sharp-toothed grin, as she would then say, "I got an idea to solve that. I just got an idea on how to solve that, Mason." As she would then say, "I am a demon who can make deals. These deals can quite literally alternate reality. As the thing is, I do not even require one soul. In fact, it could literally be anything I request. As for you, the only thing Now, here's the thing. I could make a deal for anything you would want. And you could... And all you have to do is just make the deal, and it's just... How can I say this? Always be by my side. Okay? Always know who I am, and cherish me, and love me. Okay?" As Mason would then smile, as he would then sigh and smile, as he then say, "Okay, deal." As he'd hold out his hand, and she would hold out hers, as suddenly blue flames would erupt from her hand. As the two would then shake. As she would then say, okay, so what do you want? As he'd then say, well, since you're a demon, I wish to be. How can I explain this? I wish to be turned into a demon. And I want to be a demon. As she would then, as her eyes would then widen, as she would get an even bigger grin. As she would then hold out her hand, as she would then snap her fingers. As she would then say, hey, it's a deal. As she would then say, it's a deal. As suddenly Dipper and Mason's eyes would begin to change, as his outfit would begin to change around and shift around, as the inside of his clothing would begin to look like the stars in the night sky. Basically like an entire universe. As Mason would then transform into this form, except with the hat he is wearing. Okay. As she would then smile, as she'd then say, yes, yes, as she would rush over and hug him. As the two demons would basically arrive at the nightmare realm, as they would as well, by turning into a demon and turning someone into a demon. Both Belle and Dipper, and both Belle and Mason, would have lost their physical bodies, as they would now be sent to the mindscape, or the nightmare realm, as they would be in this place of all types of things, as they would then say, strange indeed. This is very strange indeed. But as long as I'm here with you, we can get through anything together. As she would then smile, and, well, she would then turn into a humanoid but still non-physical form, as she would then smile and squeeze Mason, as he would then turn into this form, and he would hug her back. As we skip many years later, all to the year, as we skip to the year that was known as 2016. For those who don't remember, 2016 was 5 years ago. And 5 gosh darn years ago was the end of Gravity Falls. And seriously, I know that they're planning to do something with it, but I just don't know what. But anyways, we skipped all the way to 2016. Basically, everyone in canon except for Dipper except for Mason, aka Dipper, is there. As things were going basically all the way canon. As well, Belle basically is almost defeated as we go to, as basically while Belle is basically trapped inside of Stanley's mind, Stanley Pine's mind, we go to Mason's perspective, as he has basically just woken up from a very long, 1,000-year slumber, as he sees that they're back in the third dimension, or the physical world. As Mason would then stretch his arms, as he would then walk, and as he then basically would teleport to, well, where everything was going on. As he would then see, while he basically entered the room, he would see Belle make a deal with the guy she thought was Stanford, but instead was Stanley. As she would have been trapped inside of Stanley's mind. As he would then see them pull out the memory erasing gun, as he would begin rushing towards them, towards everyone, as he would then say, "Stop! Stop it!" As he would be rushing over to them, as he would summon this sword in his very hands, as he would then say, "Stop, what are you doing to her?" As he would rush over, and it would be too late, as the beam would have been fired, as he would then fall to the ground in defeat, as they would think maybe he was some sort of guy who was under her control. But boy, were they far wrong, as Mason would fall on the ground as he began glitching with rage, as suddenly Mason would begin glowing as he then transformed into this form, except with more regal looking clothes and the hat on, as he'd then say, you, as he would point at the Pines family and everyone else, as he'd say, "You don't know what you just cost me." After 1,000 years, I finally awaken in the physical world. And after 1,000 years slumber, I awaken in the physical world only to see the love of my immortal life being erased. You're gonna pay! As he would then snap his fingers, and, well, suddenly, jade flames would as suddenly blades of all types would then sprout from the ground and the walls, as suddenly blades, as he'd then turn into this form, as suddenly all types of swords and blades would pop out of his skin, as his nails would then turn into long, serrated blade claws. He would get six giant serrated blade horns and claws on his feet as well, as he would then on his toes as well, as he'd then get 6 ginormous wings made of hundreds of blades, blades and metal daggers of any type. As he would then summon the blade he is holding in this photo in his hand, as his eyes would be glowing cyan, as he would be mad. As to make things worse, all of the blades would then be glowing a green with a jade flame. As he would then basically become about 10 times his size, as he would grow 4 more arms out of, and as he'd grow 2 more arms out of metal blades. As this is his nightmare form. Disappointingly, I'm not that good of an artist, so I can't draw you guys a picture of what this epic form would look like, but all I can tell you is it's a badass. As he would rush over, as they would then see this ginormous and terrifying form of his, as he would then say, "Die!" As he would begin rushing at them and slicing at them with all types of blades that were just poking out of his own flesh. As, long story short, they defeated, as they would defeat Mason by bringing him all the way to basically they would bring him to a sort of balcony or arena at the top of the pyramid that he would have created, as all of them together would they would punch him all at once, as it would do nothing, of course, but then they would begin using all types of, machinery and things that they had equipped, as suddenly gravity would begin to get a little wonky, as there would be 0 gravity as he would at this arena, as he would then rush at them, as Stanford Pines would rush up and punch him right into the rift just as it was closing. As Mason would then say, "No!" As suddenly we see a ginormous explosion of green and blue flames and energy. As instead of the Bill Cipher statue basically being the last thing left, instead had the Cipher statue would not be there, as a yellow burst of energy would basically rise out of Stanley's head, as it would be just a orb of energy. As the orb would then disperse itself and disappear, as we go to another world known as the realm, as the dimension of chakra, or the 5th dimension, as it's basically a combination of the 3rd dimension and the 5th dimension. The 5th dimensional beings being the Yatsuki, and the 4th dimensional beings and the 3rd dimensional beings being humans. as we skip basically all the way to the Ninetales attack. Well, no, not yet. As we skip to the attack of, to the fight against Kaguya, as Hagoromo and Hamura would basically rush up as they would try to seal her. As she would be sealed, however, when the moon was being forged, they would notice a yellow swirl of some sort of yellow energy would begin to be formed. As they then see a yellow floating triangle made of pure energy. And suddenly, black arms and black legs, along with an eye and top hat, would begin to form. As Bill would then say, this, of course, would be Belle, as instead of dying, she merely would have been retransported, and she merely would have transported herself to to the Naruto world, to the new fusion of worlds, as she would see basically everything that had happened. As she would then see the two, Hagoromo and Hamura, and she would then say, my, isn't this a treat? This appears to be some sort of fusion of the third and fifth dimension. Wow. It's actually quite interesting. Yes. The fifth dimension. Yes. You must be half-breeds of a human, and I believe the term they were called was Otsutsuki. As the two would look at Belle as they'd say, who and what are you? As Belle would then say, oh, how rude of me. As the energy would then swirl around into a humanoid form. As she would then say, I'm Belle Cipher. I'm from a time before this time. Another reality, I guess you could say. As the two would look confused and would stare at Belle. As she would then say, anywho, mind if I just, take over this entire world? As the two would then, and say at the same time in a stern, deep, and stoic voice, hold on. As the two would say in a stern and manly voice, no. As they would then rush at her with both of their palms wide open, as she would obviously have seen how the seal yelling thing worked, as she would then say, oh hell no, and would teleport away. As the two would look confused as they would then fall on the ground. As they would say, she must have some sort of teleportation ability. Well, whatever that being is, she appears to be not human nor Otsutsuki, meaning she is an entirely new and different threat. Well, let's just hope she doesn't do any surprise attacks. As we skip to the Ninetales attack. Yes, I know, it's a very large time skip. Well, should I really? No, I will not skip to the Ninetales attack. Instead, I'm skipping to the and 2 basically when... Okay, I'm skipping to a time when the Nine Tails is basically when Mito Uzumaki dies. As Mito would, of course, die, as instead of the beast being sealed in anyone else, the red chakra would spill out and would basically it was about to rise out and attack everything, Belle would see this mysterious creature, as she would call it the nine-tailed fox, as she would think of it as a very powerful being, and, well, she would be, of course, using her infinite knowledge ability. She would see how basically everything would have gone, as with the Nine Tails being sealed in multiple people over and over and over. As she would then basically open a yellow and black portal, as the Nine Tails chakra would then slip out of Mito and into the portal. As Mito, and as everyone would look confused, as the Nine Tails had just basically disappeared. As we skipped Kurama, as she basically is teleported to a old and sort of basically the pyramid. However, it is now in the nightmare realm once more. As Kurama would basically turn into this humanoid form, as she would then say, "Who are you, and what did you do to me?" As Belle would then say, "Oh, well, I just saved you from being sealed into countless bodies over a couple of centuries, and over a couple of generations." I mean, seriously. That would just have been terrible. Being used as a weapon from day in to day out. I mean, seriously, did you not see the battles that I just saw? Probably not. As she would say, pretty much this guy named Madara Uchiha wanted to put you under a thing called Genjutsu with his mysterious type of eyes, and with his strange red eyes, basically controlling you and allowing him to basically use you as a weapon, as she would then say. However, after that, you would be sealed into multiple people over the years, and eventually you would be put under another thing called a Genjutsu by another person named Obito Uchiha, who would be pretending to be Madara, and would destroy a village called the Leaf. She would then say, things have gotten a bit weird. Things would have gotten a lot weirder. However, I just spared you from that terrible, miserable existence of being a weapon for all eternity. As Kurama would then say, "Who are you?" You then. As Belle would then say, "Oh dear, how rude of me. I am Belle Cipher." As Kurama would then say, "And I am Kurama." As the two would basically get to talk, as Kurama would, as we skip many years later, as Kurama would one day ask, "So, question. What exactly... How exactly are you here? You don't seem to have chakra, and you don't seem to be from this world." As Belle would then say, "Fine, I'll tell you. This world and this reality was similar to the one I was from. As this one basically is combined of multiple dimensional beings, and thus giving humans abilities such as chakra, and thus creating chakra. As where I'm from, humans do not have chakra, and, well, have only their wits and their strength to keep them alive." As she would then say, "Hey, for many years, I was alone in a unnamed and unknown place, where all sorts of monsters, demons, and anomalies happened." As she would then say, "However, there's one thing I discovered. One thing that amazes me, and one thing that amazed me. A man named Mason Pines. He was the love of my life. He did not die of old age, however. Instead, after a year of knowing me, he and I made a deal. As yes, I'm a demon, so I can make deals. He wanted to be turned into a demon so we could be together forever. As I agreed, and as I instantly agreed, and we shook on it. Next thing you know, he was turned into a demon. However, many years later, possibly over 1,000 years later, how can I explain this? We had a plan to rule over our world and eventually all of our reality, as that was the main plan. However, things had turned for the worst. As she would then say, "Hey, this time looking a bit sad." As Kurama would then say, "What do you mean, went for the worst?" As Belle would say, Mason was asleep for 1,000 years due to a human who was using voodoo spells that I tried to manipulate. As Mason, basically, when he awoken, he saw me being defeated by humans. As I told you, they have to rely on their intellect and physical strength to help them. These humans had a vast intellect, and I was a bit, how can I say, boastful. You see, before I initiated my plan, I may or may have not went in front of my old nemesis and told him exactly how my plan was going to go. Because of that little boast, he set to work on and basically doing everything he could to stop me. And, well, as annoying as it was, they actually found a way to defeat me by tricking me into a person's mind, and by tricking me into going into a person's mind, and then using a ray called a memory erasing gun on me. However, as I was basically being erased by the blue flames of the memory erasure, I saw a glimpse of Mason. He got angry and was fighting against the humans who bested me. However, they destroyed him. Quite literally. They fought him right above a rift between dimensions, and then sucker punched him into it as it was closing, and basically he exploded into an explosion of blue and jade flames. As Kurama would then say, well, that's sad. As Belle would then say, yeah, it is, but, well, my soul kind of just, the remnants of me kind of just fought against the mind erasure and brought me here. I do not know why or how, but all I know is that I'm here. As the two would basically be chatting until both of them could feel something. As to them, it felt and sounded like a guitar being strummed, or just like one note of a guitar being plucked. As they would hear one single note. As we go to Konoha. As we go to Konoha many years later. As over time the strumming of the guitar would have gotten more and more until it would eventually sound like a whole theme. As it would sound like dung 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 ding dung 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 ding ding dung 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 dung. And then they would hear one night in Konoha, they could hear it. A riff, something that sounded like a guitar riff, rippling through reality. As it would have been Naruto, and the night of Naruto's birth. As blue and green, as it would have been clear skies, as suddenly clouds would begin to form around Konoha. As they'd be swirling around Konoha, and people would think that it was some sort of jutsu. As suddenly the clouds begin to burst with cyan and, red lightning and flames. And green lightning and flames. Sorry, not red. As the jade flames would burst down onto the world, and onto the mortal world, as suddenly the entire village of Konoha would be surrounded by the jade flames as a blue burst of ungodly amounts of energy would strike down on Konoha. As Naruto would basically been born at the exact moment as his hair as his hair would have been brown. His eyes would be cyan blue. But he would still have the whisker. Well, no, he'd still have the yellow hair, the whiskers, but his eyes would be cyan blue. As Naruto's parents would think of this as some sort of a strange chakra anomaly. However, meanwhile, with Belle and Kurama, Belle would have been curious on what this strumming was leading up to, as she would basically create a sort of spyglass onto Konoha, as she would see Naruto being born, as she would notice that he had yellow hair, and as she would notice that he had yellow golden hair, whiskers, and cyan blue eyes. As at first she thought, what a cute baby. As she would then notice a familiar sense coming from Naruto, as she would then turn into her demon state, as she would use her all-seeing eye to see what was wrong with Naruto, as she would then see inside of him a blue and a cyan and jade energy like flame, as suddenly Naruto's eyes, and as suddenly on Naruto's back would appear a symbol of a pine tree around a wheel of a whole bunch of symbols. As the pine tree would be on fire, would appear to have some sort of fire symbol surrounding it. As Belle would then say, is it even possible? As she would then think, wait a minute, of course, reincarnation. As she would then turn into her humanoid form, as she would rush over to Kurama and say, he's here, he's here, he's here. As Kurama would then say, whoa, calm down, Belle. Who is here? As Belle would then say, Mason, he's been reincarnated into a human body, but he's still 100% demon. Thank God. However, his hair and appearance have changed a bit. However, his eyes are still the same. As she would say, his eyes are basically like a cyan blue with black slits in them. He has sharp teeth, and, well, now he has yellow or golden hair, and whisker marks. As now y'all might be wondering, wait, how on earth does Naruto still have the whisker marks? Allow me to explain. You see, as I explained, Mito would have died of old age in this timeline, as the as when she gave children, the Nine Tails would, and Kurama would have slipped out some of the chakra, but it would be non-dormant for a whole bunch of the bloodlines all the way up until Naruto. And all the way down till Naruto. As that small amount of chakra would have given him a very large power boost. But I'm not going to tell you what it is exactly yet. As she would then say, oh my gosh, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I'm so excited. He's here. He's finally back. Well, I mean, I have to, of course, wait for him to become a bit older, then I'll reach out to him. And if he doesn't have his memories, then that'll be good and we'll have to make new memories. As Kurama would then say, hey, you've been talking about this guy for many years now, so I have a question. Could we share him? As Belle would look at Kurama, then would look through the sort of spyglass to Konoha, as she would look at Kurama, then the spyglass, then Kurama, then the spyglass, then Kurama, as she would do this about 30 more times, as she would then say, and she would then close her eyes, and she would then sigh and say, yes, we may share him, but if you try to hog him, then I will punch you. And just allow me to show you how hard one of my punches would be. As she would then wind back her fist in her humanoid state, as she would then would punch at what appeared to be a ginormous sort of living mountain in the nightmare realm, as she would punch it and it would basically be flung back infinite miles and it would explode in flame. I mean, in blue flame. As Kurama would then gulp, as she would say, got it, I will not hog him. As Belle would then say, good. As she would then say, let's watch the human part of his life together. As she would then create a sort of viewing screen that looked like a TV. As she would then summon some popcorn and snacks and would say, that way we'll be able to know what he likes and all of his interests and that type of stuff, so we can make him happy every single day. As Kurama would then say, okay. As the two would look up and would basically watch the screen, and yeah. As that's where I'm ending this part off. Hope y'all enjoyed part 1 of What If Naruto was the reincarnation of Demon Mason Pines, or Dipper, or basically Demon Dipper, part 1. As yes, that's the name of this What If. So hope y'all enjoyed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and smash that like button. And please, one of you, make a drawing of that, of what you think Dipper's form would look like, and his nightmare form would look like, and then just please, post it on your YouTube thing, and on YouTube, and then just tell me, and I'll look on your community page to see it, okay? And then basically I'll screenshot that and use it. Okay, just please do that for me. Hope y'all enjoyed. Please like, share, comment, and smash that subscribe button and everything else. And if I get notifications, and if I have or ever do get notifications, please smash that like bell, and please smash that notification bell, and I'll see y'all next time. Skadoosh.